Welcome to episode 7 of Beyond the Feed, a space where we talk to creators and photographers about how they got started, where they're going, the ups and downs, and everything in between. Today we have Ben Hahn, an amazing food and travel photographer here in New York City. All right, what is the best food you've had recently?
There's two things that come to mind.
Okay.
The first thing is, and this is weird because I actually don't like black truffles that much.
Okay.
I don't think it adds that much to a dish. But a chef made a black truffle Peking duck. That was pretty phenomenal.
Where was this at?
This place called Octo in K-Town, OCTO.
And was this one of your clients or like?
No,
just
a place I've been supporting since day one to become friends. And I texted the chef for a reservation. He's like, "You want me to save you?" Well, I asked him to save me a Peking duck because he makes a really fantastic Peking duck. He goes, "Do you want the black truffle one?"
Okay.
And I thought about it. I was like, I've never had one. I'm not crazy about black truffles. I just thought it was gonna be like shaved black truffles on top. But he like infused it into the duck, into the skin, which is kind of crazy.
How do you do that?
I have no idea.
Do you have to like almost liquefy it in some way and then inject it?
Maybe put it under or something. Yeah, it was weird. But it came out, the whole duck came out almost like, looked like it was charred, black, like burnt. But it was with black truffle and it was phenomenal.
Wow.
So that was surprising. And then the second best thing I ate recently was a prime rib from another chef friend's place called Gui, Gui.
Okay.
Right on like 47th and 8th. The brand new steakhouse, fantastic prime rib. And I love prime ribs. So those are the two things that stand out.
Adding those to my list.
Yeah.
I like a prime rib. Okay, so how'd you describe yourself as a creator? Like a lot of what you do is food, but like if you're to explain who you are to someone, how'd you do that?
I describe myself as a photographer who happens to be in the content creator space.
Okay. So was photography the impetus of this?
I mean, I didn't set out to be a photographer. It just kind of happened.
As it does.
It does, yeah.
I can relate.
I mean, I've been taking photos since the old flip phone, cell phone days of just capturing memories of documenting everything I ate, just for my own personal memories, because I like looking back on dishes that I had, and it's just like a hobby, right?
So right off the bat, you were taking photos of food. Like that's something that really stood out to you. Yeah. Or were you taking photos of kind of all aspects?
No, mainly food, just the dishes that I ate. Because again, just a photographic memory of things I've ate. I can recall it. I can find it quickly. I guess the passion for food comes from working in the industry as a child at my mom's restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
As long as I've been born, she's had a restaurant.
Yeah.
So been surrounded by food pretty much my entire life. But yeah, it wasn't until I started working.
Is this restaurant still open?
Not the one I worked at. The one I worked at was in New Jersey.
Okay.
In Matawan, which is kind of where I grew up. I grew up in Old Bridge, New Jersey, but that's where she had the restaurant. But now she has one in Pennsylvania.
Got it. Okay, cool. I was gonna see if we could plug the local one.
The local one is called Wing Lee Cuisine, and I think it's in is it Horsham or something like that? Horsham, Pennsylvania.
Got it. Okay, yeah. Cool. And you started at a very young age. Like you started working in the restaurant with your mom.
As soon as I could walk and talk, I was answering the phones.
How old were you?
I was like, my dad was in the bathroom one day. He's like, "Hey, if anyone calls, just pick it up." And I was like, "Okay." And he was like, someone called. I was like, "Hello." And like, "Can we order 2 egg rolls?" I said, "Sure." And I was like, "Okay, bye."
Boom. From there.
Like, Dad's like, "You get their name, number?" I was like, "No." So that was my first recollection of,
And you were what, like
probably like
6 years
7 years old, 6 years old, something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
Just, but it was normal to me. And then, just like kind of hanging out in the kitchen, doing whatever. And then eventually bussing tables, being bartender, even when I was like underage and all those things. And
yeah, I did that.
It was great. It was normal to me. Being the only child, it was like, I don't know. That was, I guess, all my friends were the wait staff, which were like my cousins and my best friends anyway. So it was cool.
Yeah, I was a server in high school / bartender at a banquet hall for like weddings, and my friends worked there, and like I actually had a cousin that worked there at one point. It was just like, it was work, but it was kind of fun. Like working in food is a good time.
I recommend it to everyone.
Yeah, especially when you're young.
Yeah, everyone should work in hospitality, I think, just to learn what it's like dealing with people, kind of being on the other side of it. And it really humbles you.
I remember one day someone asked me at a wedding to turn the AC down. They were hot, so they wanted it to be colder. So we did that. And like 20 minutes later, someone was complaining they were way too cold. And I'm like, okay, this is hospitality.
Yeah.
Like no one, like you cannot make everyone happy.
Nope.
And I think it's good because you learn to like respect and appreciate, your servers and people you're interacting with at a restaurant or whatever. So
Exactly.
yeah, I think it should be actually a requirement to
In life.
to enter society. You have to work in hospitality at some point.
Agreed.
So what was your peak role like at the restaurant? Were you ever like cooking? Like what is like the highest profile responsibility
the one
you
thing
had?
she never let me do is she never let me cook because, in a Chinese kitchen, the woks are super dangerous with like hot oil splattering everywhere, intense fires. At the time, I didn't want to do it anyways because it's really tough to do that. But, in hindsight, I wish I did just to learn.
Yeah.
Highest profile would be just managing the restaurant, making sure everything's fine. Managing my station, which was like 12 tables at a time.
Wow.
I was busboy, water boy, server, waiter, whatever, everything,
Doing
all
everything,
months, changing the tables, setting the tables. Like it was insane. And sometimes when I look at it now and I see, other restaurants, a server might have 3 or 4 tables max. It's a little different. They have a lot of help, but back then it was just me and my own station, and we keep our tips. There's no pooling.
Yeah.
So
you kind of just have to figure it out.
You got to figure it out. Yeah. Tell me.
Okay. So working in the restaurant industry is kind of like where this passion started, but then you ended up going into finance, right? Like how did that happen? Was it job security, the dollar signs? What led to that?
Not at all. It was, I wasn't good at science. I wasn't good at anatomy. So like, it was just kind of I was okay in math, to be honest. And some of my friends were doing it. It was either like back then, it was either finance or computer science or medical. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. So
I wasn't good at the other two. So I figured I'd just try finance and fell into it. It wasn't for the money either.
You actually enjoyed math?
No, I didn't actually.
Well, it was just, you were just good at it.
It was just like I don't know.
That's what the cool kids were doing.
Kind of, yeah, but it just felt like I guess I can go down this path, right? I feel like I could have done it, and I did. I was horrible at school, to be honest. I almost fell out of community college, but it's a different story.
Wait, what? So you went from almost failing community college to graduating Rutgers, right?
Yeah, graduated Rutgers. I was in Middlesex County College after high school, and when you graduate high school, I was with like 1 or 2 of my best friends, and we just felt like it was high school continued.
Yeah.
And you didn't get in trouble for cutting class, so I didn't really put any effort into it. I was failing everything, and then I just didn't care until I got a letter that basically said you're expelled from Middlesex Community College. And then
Bit of a wake-up call.
Yeah, it was a huge wake-up call, and I was like, what am I going to do? Where do I go from here, right? I can't tell my mom, she's going to kill me. And I basically pleaded with the dean for another chance. He goes, I'm going to give you 1 semester probation, and that's all you get. And then from that point on, I graduated with honors, transferred over to Rutgers, graduated with honors, and did okay.
Got it. And then you went and got the classic 9 to 5.
Classic 9 to 5.
How was that?
It was okay.
Did it ever feel right? Were you ever like,
no,
man, I'm glad I'm
no.
doing this?
I mean, I took a job with BMG Music.
Okay.
That's my first job. It was in Lyndhurst, New Jersey. And at the time, I was living in Central Jersey, so it was about an hour drive north. And I remember the first day I went, it was miserable. I hated it. They were like, "Oh, we got to do pivot tables and all this stuff." And I was like, and then my girlfriend at the time, she's like, "Hey, there's an opening at E&Y in my group," and she's like, "You should apply." And I applied that day, and I got hired that day.
Wow.
And I quit that day.
All on your first day?
All my first day.
That's
I
fast.
worked at E&Y with my ex. We were sitting right next to each other. And that was my first job at Ernst & Young.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you worked in finance for like 10 years. Were you at
15.
EY? 15. Were you there the whole time?
No.
Bounced around?
Went to E&Y, then Weber Shandwick, and then Morgan Stanley, and then UBS Investment Bank.
Got it. So a lot of solid 9 to 5 experience, probably some great money. When did you start thinking, like, it sounds like right off the bat, you're like, this is not my passion project. But when did you actively start thinking, I want to do something else?
It was actually a couple years in. I think it was like want to say 4 years into my finance career is when I
Okay.
started making some decent money, where I was able to go out to eat at nicer restaurants or just eat in general. I was in a city, and it really sparked my passion for food again, right? And hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at that time, Top Chef had just come out, maybe. So it was like all the,
What time frame are we talking? What year is
Uh,
this roughly?
This is like 2004.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, we just dated you.
Yeah, it's okay.
But okay, and when you're going out to these kind of cool restaurants, you're making some money. You're getting back into capturing the food?
No. It wasn't even that. It was more about the energy of the restaurant.
Yeah.
It was about that kind of like being in it, being taken care of, or taking care of people, right?
Mhm.
And like being in that field where you're talking to people, and just hospitality in general. I missed it a lot. And at that time, I wanted to be a chef because I was so into cooking, and I was like buying all these cookbooks and following like people like Thomas Keller, Danielle Boulud, and all that stuff, Eric Ripert. I was just in awe of what they were doing. So
Mhm.
I would talk to chefs outside on their smoke breaks during lunch and during my lunch.
Yeah.
Like, or 3 o'clock coffee break for me, break time for them. It's like, hey chef, what do you think about culinary school? And they're like, well, before you spend all that money, why don't you come work in a restaurant for a few weeks before you do that? And I was like, okay. So I staged back in the day, a place called Sea Grill in Rockefeller Center.
Okay.
I staged at the Modern for a day. And after just 2 times, I said, okay, this is not for me. It's tough. Being a chef in New York City is just really hard.
Yeah.
You gotta start from the bottom. You
It's
gotta
really
work your way
like
up.
it's a really tense environment, right?
Yeah, very tense. And then culinary school wasn't cheap either. It's like, I think at the time it was like 30 to 40K, maybe more. And I just didn't want to drop that money and then go to school and come out and make minimum wage. So
Right.
it was tough. And then I also wanted to be an owner. I wanted to be like the Asian Danny Meyer and own like all these restaurants in the city. But
Who's Danny Meyer?
Danny Meyer is like, he started Union Square Cafe,
Okay.
and now, Gramercy Street Tavern,
Yep.
Shake Shack,
Oh,
11
okay,
Madison
cool.
Park. Yeah, I mean, he's that guy. And
Got it.
he's a legend in the hospitality world. But I wanted to be like him and open all these businesses, but that requires money.
Right.
And I didn't have that at the time. So I was like, okay, maybe hospitality is not for me. Right.
So the passion for food in the hospitality space is there, but like being a chef was out. When did you start? When did the path to content creation, like when did that begin?
That began in 2016, I think a year after I left finance.
Okay. So this is like 10 years later.
Yeah.
So you left finance
I left finance
before being a creator.
Yeah, there was being a creator didn't happen until like 2017 by accident, maybe even
Okay.
2016. But I had left finance because they're offshoring my group, and they're like, you can stay in the company and get another role, or you can take a severance check for a year. I was like, easy, I'm taking
Boom.
the severance. And I traveled the world and decided I didn't want to go back into corporate. Didn't know what I wanted to do. But I wanted to get back into hospitality, right? I wanted to get back into doing something where I can talk to people, I can
Yeah.
help people, or kind of like serve them in some way and make a
Just
difference.
the interaction is like I was an engineer for 4 years, and you talk to the same people every single day.
Yeah.
And it's just like, even if you like them, it got old.
Mhm.
Whereas like being a photographer, when I started doing that, every day I went to work, I was working with someone new. And it's just this like, it's like a slot machine of like, what type of person am I going to meet today?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty fun.
Yeah. I mean, even back in the day when I used to meet people at like events or parties, they go, what do you do? I'm like, I'm in finance, period. There's nothing, there's literally nothing else to talk about. I don't even want to
Yeah.
talk about it. So, after I left finance, it was like, what am I going to do? I did apply for a couple jobs. I applied for a GM job actually at Houston's, I think it's called.
The bar?
Houston. Yeah, it's a big one on Park Ave, I think.
Okay.
Or Lex, one of those streets.
Okay.
And they're like, if you want to be a general manager, because front of house was my experience, right? I worked front of house for like, 15 years. Like, well, you need to start in the very bottom. You need to actually work every position in the restaurant to know what everyone's doing in order to manage them. I was like, okay, well, and then I was underqualified because, I just worked in my mom's restaurant. That's all the experience I had. So I was like, okay, maybe this is a pretty tough, uphill road as well. So I said, maybe it's just not for me. And then after that, I did some consulting, and then I did real estate. I didn't like that either. And then it was I think in 2017 I met some photographers. You know, I had a pop-up cafe with my ex, and that was really cool because that's where I learned the power of social media.
Mm-hmm.
That's when people were coming in and taking photos of our place and posting about our food and our drinks online. And I was like, how did you find that about us?
Mm-hmm.
Like this. And they would show me their phone and Instagram. And I was like, wow, it's a beautiful photo. I'm here every
Yeah.
day. I'm here every day. I don't even see that light. I don't see that angle. So it really opened my eyes to photography, and all our guests were photographers and creatives and artists and all these creatives.
Was this intentional? Like, was this the environment you wanted to create, or that's just kind of the audience that showed
It's
up?
kind of the audience that showed up. You know, I think a lot of artists and creatives love going to cafes.
Yeah.
And I never once valued myself as a creative. I never thought I had actually any creative skills in my body, to be honest. I don't know. My ex was really creative, right? And but when these people came in and I saw their photos, like some of them were wedding photographers. One of them was a nurse and a wedding photographer at the same time. Like he did it as a side gig, but he was amazing.
Yeah.
And I saw his photos, and I
wait, what's his name?
Joseph Padiernos.
Okay, I was thinking of, I know someone who's a male nurse,
okay,
photographer. So I'm like, wait, is it Ant? That would have been crazy.
But yeah, I mean, it really opened my eyes to photography, and it made me want to take better photos.
Yeah.
I was always a hobbyist, but it was always like one shot done.
And did you even have a camera at the time, or were you just on your iPhone?
I had a Canon 7D that I didn't know how to use for years, and I would take the worst photos and I just put it on the side and I gave it up. But my friend, he had a Fuji X-T1 and he was shooting, weddings with it. And I was like, this is awesome. So I bought it, and that was my first camera, and I shot that for the first like 2 years. And that's when
what were you shooting? Like, was it just walking around? Like,
yeah, landscapes,
lifestyle,
food, everything. And I was awful at it. and I would ask him, like, hey man, how do you edit? How do you compose a shot? He's like, just keep shooting.
Yeah.
He goes, you'll find your own style.
So true.
And you'll find your own like way, but like just keep shooting. And it's true.
Yeah.
Like,
you have the rule of thirds and all these like basic composition rules, but like you have to develop your own eye by doing.
Yeah. And I tell people, it's like when you look at a photo, figure out what it is that you don't like about it, not what you like about it, and then how you can change that. Because that's how I critique my own photos. There's something off about it. I just can't figure out what it is, but that's what I want to improve until I actually like it.
Yeah. Sometimes subtraction is an easier way to approach like refining a photo.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, so you get a camera, you spend a couple of years shooting, like it sounds like for fun. When did you think, man, maybe I could make money doing this?
I didn't. I actually didn't at all. It was just a hobby, and like I would go to all these restaurants and just photograph and share a photo on Instagram, and
you're not getting invited, no promotions.
No,
you're going there paying to eat, taking photos and tagging them.
Yeah. So I think the turning point was, sitting in the real estate office one day when I was still doing real estate, and I got an email from Refinery 29 saying, "Hey Ben, we'd love to feature you in our top food Instagrams to follow in New York City."
Mm-hmm.
I was like, and they gave me a link.
I remember talking about this when we first met for coffee.
Yeah, and I was like, this is cool. It's like a list of like, there was only 12 people at the time or something like that.
Yeah, and
like, we'd love to add you to this list. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, you sure you got the right person? I have like 3,000 followers, and my photos aren't that great, but like, yeah, we actually love your work, and we'd love to feature you and include you on this list.
Wow, that's so cool.
So like, yeah, so that was,
you were just motivated by the fun of it, and
and
apparently you're so good, people found you and like, we need to share this with more people.
Yeah, so once I made that list, I started getting emails from PR companies, restaurants, like restaurant owners, even chefs, being like, hey, we'd love to invite you to our space to try our food. I was like, this is weird, getting invites to eat food for free.
Yeah.
And
was there an expectation that you were going to like take photos and post about it?
Yeah, that's kind of the unspoken agreement, of like, we'd love for you to share. There's no contract or anything. It was just like, just come on in and try our food. And of course, for me, I was just really grateful to be invited, and it reminded me of my mom's restaurant. When I went to these like small mom and pops, especially, like just kind of seeing how hard they're working and the pains they're going through. It really reminded me of my mom's place. So I just wanted to do the best job I could for them.
Yeah.
So when I took photos, it took forever because like I was trying to find the right angle, the right composition, and I would eat my food super cold because I took forever. It was so bad. People were like, "Oh, how was it?" I'm like, "Oh, it was good, yeah." But
oh, that's funny.
So yeah, so basically that's how it started, and then, you know, I become friends with the chefs and restaurant owners, and they'd be like, some of them would be like, "Hey, would you mind running our social media?"
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't think I can do that. And then my one friend goes, "Dude, you're not even working." I was like it's, okay, fair point. And I did his social, and it popped.
And did you start with like one client?
Started one client, and then like, you know, I did his social media. Another restaurant owner saw it, and he's like, "Hey man, are you doing like Eric's social?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Can you do ours?" And then that led to another restaurant and another restaurant and another referral. And then like, you know, I think at one time I had like 6 or 7 restaurants. And I was like, this is crazy. I'm getting paid to take photos of food of places that I frequent on my own anyways.
Yeah.
Right. And this is like a dream thing. And that's when I started monetizing on photography.
Yeah.
Not even content creation. I wasn't.
And you're still doing purely still photos.
Just photos, no videos. And then, that was the bulk of my career actually from 2017 to 21 of doing social media management. And then Instagram started popping, and I started getting some brand deals, which is great. Here and there, but I couldn't.
How many followers did you have at the time?
I think like 20 something thousand.
Okay.
You know?
And what do these brand deals look like?
Could be anything from like frozen fish to like, you know, steaks to alcohol brands to, yeah, I mean, anything.
And at the time they're shipping you product, and are they expecting like, was it short form content yet, or still just photos?
Still photos.
Yeah.
I think video started popping off in like 2000, I want to say like 18, 19-ish.
Well, didn't you say this was around 2021, or that was the end of when you
That's the end
doing
of when I was doing,
client-based
yeah,
service?
I was I'm very slow when it comes to conforming to what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
Because I hate doing that. So when people are like, "You need to do more videos," I was like, "I'll do videos when I'm ready." And and I wasn't ready until like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
But I still love the beauty of a photo. You know, I like the still. I like looking at it. I don't want to look at something for 0.5 seconds and have a million things flash in front of me. So for me, it was like, like I said, I'll do videos when I'm ready. And I decided I was ready like a year and a half ago. Just like, okay, I want to learn now.
And when you started doing video, were you just doing it kind of organically, creating your own content based on what you're interested in, or were you doing this for clients?
More for myself. Yeah, I think the reason why I didn't want to do videos was because I wanted to be perfect. I wanted to be like Chef's Table like in the beginning. Just cinematically beautiful work, right? But that's what prohibited me from starting, to be honest, for years. And that's how my life has been. You know, just wanting things to be right or wanting to make the right decisions. And that always held me back from doing things.
Yeah, especially as a creative, you always have this perfect image in your head. And I think I recently started doing more video, and video, there's just so many more layers to it than photo. And I feel like it's really hard.
Super hard.
To get right. And the only way to get better at it is by doing. So how have your video skills evolved from when you finally were ready to do video to now?
I still feel like I'm in the beginner stages, to be honest. But like what I said earlier, you look at a video and at the end you think about what you don't like about it or how it could be better, right? You start when you're in it, you're probably looking at the same clip over and over again for hours. And when you post it, it's like, okay, fine, I'm happy with it. But then you go back like a week later, like, oh man, I could have made this shorter. I could have cut that out. So it's really looking back at it and reanalyzing it and looking at it. How could I have made this better?
It's really this constant subtraction. Like you have your raw footage, you make a first cut, and then let's say you have a couple minutes to now cut down to like hopefully 45 seconds.
Yeah.
You just keep rewatching it. Like, what can I remove that doesn't like impact the story?
Yeah.
I never would have thought that. It's all like subtraction.
To me, at least.
It's
amazing how much you can trim. I think about this one exercise my friend and I did once. where I sent him this video and it was like a minute, 15 seconds. He goes, dude, this could be like 45 seconds. I was like, there's no way. I've been working on this for 2 hours and I can't cut anymore. He goes, send it to me. And we did a little test. We took 10 minutes to re-edit it. He did it. I did it. And then we sent it to each other.
Yeah.
And he sent me his 49-second version. I sent him my 55-second version. Or no, 59-second. And it was like unbelievable how much stuff I didn't need.
Right.
And it really reminded me that you can cut.
Yeah, I had a friend, when I first started making short form content, my friend Kingston told me, he's like, dude, like, this is too slow. You need to cut out, like, every element needs to be like cut in half.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Like, there's so much detail missing.
Yeah.
And that's just how people want, that really like fast paced story now, like that bite sized story. And yeah, usually you can cut more than you think.
And I think people's attention spans have kind of shortened too.
Oh yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think that has happened.
Yeah.
And you just gotta meet people where they play. And it's like, that's what they want. Right.
Yeah.
So how do you reformat your story to fit like what people are craving? So let's talk about like today. You've done a lot of different things, from like a lot of different jobs, and offered a lot of different services, from doing brand deals to working with clients to just doing things for fun. What does your business look like today as a content creator?
It's interesting, it's a whole bunch of different things. First and foremost, I'm still a photographer first. So my main...
Yeah, to me, I view almost even photographers as content creators. Like, I view it as a higher level.
Mm-hmm.
Would you call yourself a content creator or a photographer?
Photographer.
Okay.
Yeah. I think content creator is, it is what I do every day, to be honest. I'm recording every day and shooting every day. And I am creating content every day.
Yeah.
But I'm doing that to improve my photography.
Interesting.
Not so much to become a better content creator, but I am also striving to do that as well.
Yeah.
So every day I'm trying to create better content, not just for Instagram, it's for myself, to create content that I'm actually proud of and happy with, which a lot of it is not. I always feel like I can do better, especially with videos and even photos. I'm like, oh, I could have shot that better. Or that's why I get inspired by a lot of other people's work that I see. I'm like, oh, that's beautiful. I want to be like that. That's goals,
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's always like, you always want more.
Mm-hmm.
I see creators, I'm like, man, like, I want to create things like that.
Yeah.
But you'll get there. So wait, let's go back. So I kind of hijacked us.
It's okay.
On the photographer versus content creator question. So what does your business look like today?
Today it is shooting for restaurants, whether it's their full menu or, just kind of user generated content. It's events, which is, we've talked about this. I hate shooting events. It's like it's like shooting a wedding.
Yeah.
And it's just such a high pressure thing. You got to get like, the CEO with this person, or this important person with that person. It's got to be the perfect lighting. Everyone's got to be in focus. It's very high stress. But
when everything changes fast.
Yeah, but it pays well.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it. I've been trying to like overcome that sort of like fear. And I've shot three big events this year. They've all turned out just fine. So I remind myself that everything's going to be okay.
Right.
And it's worked. So
it sounds like a good portion of the money you make is, if not all of it now, is based on like selling your services of photography and content creation to other businesses, mainly food, right? Yeah. And I work with tourism boards as well, which I love, going to a different city, exploring their food scene and sharing it. And will they like commission you to come out and just make content about what's an example of somewhere you've been? Vermont, Vermont Tourism Board. I would go for like a week and visit 3 cities and just eat in those cities and share it, and then give them assets so that they can use. And are you also sharing it to your audience? Yes. Got it. Yeah. And what is like, if you don't mind me asking, what does a package for a project like that look like? It can range anywhere from like 5 to 10K, for the week. And are they covering all your expenses on top of that? Yeah, yeah. Sometimes. So you're just getting paid to travel and eat. Yeah, yeah. Cruise lines as well. Working with a lot of cruise lines recently. Oh, interesting. And I love it. Cruising is a very interesting industry. I've never been on a cruise. Yeah, that's usually what people say. But people have a perception of what cruises are like, right? Yeah.
And it depends. There are many different kinds. You have your Royal Caribbeans and your Carnivals, which are like floating hotels and amusement
Right.
parks. And then you have your intimate ones like Seabourn and Azamara, which is like very intimate, older crowd, no kids or barely any kids, no water slides or anything. It's like 300 to 600 passengers max, and you're going to like smaller ports where big cruise ships don't go.
And are you spending more time off of the ship, like exploring the local food and stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that?
for sure. I mean, that the whole point of working with the cruise line is to feature the culinary options on the ship, right?
Yeah.
But you're also featuring the destinations that they visit. So, and I love it. I love working with them a lot. Again, highlighting kind of like what the cruise ship offers and showing what a cruise is like on their boat. Because like, you know, similar to you've never been on a cruise, and that's my goal, is to show what it's
Right.
like to
You're trying to get me on a cruise.
try to get you on a cruise.
So do you, like, I meet a lot of creators, and I think the dream is like to make all this passive income off of brand deals. And like, are you at peace with making money through services? Or do you sometimes think about, man, I wish I was making more off of just selling this basically content to my audience?
I think working with brands is great. You know, you can definitely make a significant amount of money, you know, when you get to that level. And I've been fortunate to work with I just worked with Don Julio on a Lunar New Year campaign for their new release for one of their bottles. I think content creators who can work with brands is amazing. It's a very lucrative. You can make great. I mean, I had a friend who quit Salesforce to go full-time content creation. I mean, like, it's pretty big jump, you know.
Right.
I'm sure he's making great money there, but to do that is pretty insane.
So how do you, how would you recommend getting started? Like, I think there's a lot of people out there with that 9 to 5 that they don't love, that have an iPhone, probably are better at, just like you, like they're probably more creative than they realize. And let's not think just about food, but let's think about anything. Like,
Yeah.
could be any interest, any passion. How do you get started? And how do you stay consistent?
Well, I get asked this often, and I tell my friends that, like, don't wait to start. You know, don't be like me, and just do it. Do it for the fun of it. Do it for the love of it. Don't do it for the fame. Don't do it for the income, because that'll come naturally.
Yeah.
Right? People will notice your work. I think this is my take. I think that if you put out good work and it shows, people will come to you. So when you can see the people that are doing it for not the right reasons, but the people that are passionate about it and just creating wonderful content because they love it, and they're doing it for fun or maybe like for the love of it, you can see that. And those are the things that I think that brands that want to work with those kind of people.
You mentioned this word wonderful, and I feel like even I don't make wonderful content yet. And I've been a photographer and like artist for a long time. Like, it's hard. Like, it just takes time to learn. So how do you like keep going when you still kind of suck?
I think you do make wonderful content, but you don't think you make wonderful content. Just like I think I don't make wonderful content.
Fair.
Because we're both getting paid for gigs, right? Sometimes great money for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have this imposter syndrome sometimes, or we just think that we can be better, right? I think that all the time. I'm always harsh on myself. I'm like, man, this sucks. People are like, what are you talking about? This is amazing. But I'm like, no, it can be better.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not wonderful, but to others it is. And that's what's most important.
That's so true.
So you got to remember that.
For the long, like, I've been a photographer for 10 years, and I don't think I actively started sharing my work until like 7 or 8 years in. I would like show my friends on my phone, like, oh, I took this photo, but I would never really post it because I thought I was so critical of my work.
Yeah.
And I didn't really like identify as a photographer. I was like, oh, I'm a guy with a camera.
Yeah.
But we're all like, everyone is their own worst critic.
Sure.
And there's people that I started to realize, I'm like, man, like, most of the time when I show these photos to people, they say great things.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should start putting it out there more.
Exactly.
And I started doing that with videos. And as much as I'm very critical and I'm like, oh, I want to do this better, that better, like you just said, like, and a lot of people are like, oh, I liked that video you made. I'm like, oh, really? Like, I thought it was kind of shitty.
Yeah.
So it sounds like just put it out there.
Exactly. And like, again, you're going to be your harshest critic, right? And I think that you strive to the point of where you feel comfortable of you liking your work.
Mm-hmm.
You like, and sometimes that happens to me. I'm like, I'm really proud of this. I like it. Like I'll watch it over and over again. I'm like, I'm really happy with the way this came out. I love it.
What's funny, I've had days like that too. I'm like, man, this video is so good. It's going to do so well. And then it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? This other thing that I just threw together it got way better views. Like, why?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? Like basically like the expectations of like, oh, this video should perform well. Like what happens when they don't?
See, I don't care about engagement. I don't care about performance, to be honest. I really don't. I care about the work.
Yeah.
I care about the end result, whether or not I'm happy with it. I don't care if there's no likes or any comments, to be quite honest. I really don't. I care about whether I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
And whether or not I've done a justice to the restaurant that I visited or the client that I've worked with.
Right.
I want them to be happy. That's my main concern. If they're happy with it and they love it, then I'm happy. And myself, of course.
And are you like, obviously you're sharing the content with your audience, but is their main goal in hiring you to like have awesome assets they can use on their website?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I think like you can like control so much with the algorithm, and usually the client, you know, you can get good feedback from them on like, if qualitatively they're happy with it. That makes sense. Let's talk about creative workflows a little bit. We were, before we came in here, talking about how last night you were editing at what, like 3 a.m.?
4 a.m. Yeah.
4 a.m. Okay.
Yeah.
How come?
I was in a groove. I think I started at midnight, and there was a set that, you know, I was creating. I was editing for my friend's restaurant. You know, they're changing concepts, and I did the photo shoot 2 days ago. So I wanted to deliver it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And, you know, I work best late at night when it's quiet and like the city's kind of at sleep. So my most productive hours are from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m., which is bad.
Unfortunately, I can relate.
Yeah.
I wish, do you ever like kind of beat yourself up and say, man, I wish I was like, I could do this in the morning?
Yeah, all the time. But
do you ever change?
No, because you know, morning is just different. You know, people do wake up around 6 a.m., 7 a.m. You can hear the people in the streets. You can like kind of sense that people are up, and it's just not the same for me.
Yeah.
I love the quietness of the night. So, you know, when I get home, then the problem is my day starts at 10 p.m. You know, when I get home from dinner, take a shower, answer emails, and then I start going through photo sets.
Yep.
And selects from like weeks ago.
Yeah.
And repeat every day. So it's like I'm catching up on all these photo
How many
sets.
days out of the week are you eating, like,
every day.
shooting? Every day.
Cameras with me. You saw earlier. My camera's in my bag. I'm shooting tonight. I'm shooting every night. You know, like it's and even if I'm not invited, I'm still shooting.
Yeah.
I'm still documenting because I've been like that for, you know, as long as I can remember.
How often does that turn into a new client? Like just going, you know, showing up somewhere where you love the food, taking good photos, tagging them. Like, how often do they reach out to you and say, oh, we want to feature you? Like, could you come and do this again with our full menu? Yeah,
it's happened many times. Not as often because a lot of times restaurants have their own photographers, but it happened recently with, you know, 2 restaurants that I love, Oceans and Carlotto. Been friends with Chef for years now, since like right before COVID when they opened, and you know, they brought me in for a huge 2-day photo shoot, and it was terrifying, but it was great. You know, it worked out.
And
great.
That came from you in the beginning. One day you just ate there and took some photos, and that's how they discovered you.
I think that, but also the relationship with Chef. You know, I've become good friends with him, and I've always supported him, and he's loved my work, and he's wanted to get me in for a long time, and I've kind of like pushed back on it a little bit just because I want to do a good job for him. It's a really big company, and I finally said yes. Shot it like a week ago. And,
how'd it go?
Still going through selects, but you know, and it's funny.
We'll find out tonight at like 3 a.m.
Kind of what we talked about earlier, right? Like the first restaurant we shot was an Italian restaurant, right? And I didn't feel good about it that day because, you know, it's a very dark interior.
Yeah.
And I just didn't, you know, I felt like a lot of the backgrounds were very similar, and they want to capture the ambiance of the restaurant, but it's very hard because the way the dishes are, you can only basically shoot it from either overhead or 45. You can't go low.
Or using flash?
No.
Or all ambient light?
Constant light. Like, kind of like this right here.
Right. Okay.
But, you know, it was so challenging, and I didn't like it. And I sent it over with a caveat saying, you know, here's the shots, here's the photos. I was like, it's very challenging. And then Chef emails me the next morning. He goes, dude, what are you talking about? These are amazing.
Yeah.
And he goes, these are freaking awesome. Like, and he knew I was being hard on myself, but I just want to make it nice for him. Right.
Dude, I do more, I don't do as much photography now as I did, but when I was doing a lot of events, there would be days where I'm like, man, like, that sucked. I just didn't capture the moments I was hoping to.
Yeah.
And then I get an email back from the client. They're like, these are unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, thank you so much. Can't wait to work with you again. I'm like, oh, okay.
Telling you, man, you're doing wonderful work.
I think sometimes the hardest part is like your own criticism.
Yeah.
What do you think is the hardest part of being a photographer or creator?
I think for me, it's adapting to all the new things, like I think back in the day when, again, video form, right? It was doing videos, but also showing yourself more, which I don't like to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like being in front of the camera, but people nowadays.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't tell you we're going to be on camera today.
It's okay. I thought we were just going to be voice today. Yeah, I would have dressed up a little bit more, but
surprise.
Yeah, I think just kind of conforming to what everyone's doing because I don't like to do that. So that's the hard part. Also, just kind of like keeping up with all the trends and all these different things. I don't like to follow what everyone else is doing. So just kind of like, I guess, not being so stubborn, but I'm happy with that. I'm okay with that. And I think the hardest part is also for me is keeping up with all the editing. It's just, I have so much in my to-do list.
Is it mainly photo or video?
Both.
Like 50-50? Give me, what's the breakdown?
I mean, mainly photos. Photos are still my bread and butter, but like, every day I got to do video highlights, right? Of my visit, a reel now or whatever. And it's just like, you want to show.
Yeah, so you typically do this like, this kind of overview of the experience at a restaurant. It's like everything from walking in to sitting down, like plates. Like it's cool. I feel like it's like almost, it's not POV, but it's really this kind of linear journey of entering a restaurant. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Thank you. I want to show you what it's like to dine there, right?
Yeah, let's go.
Especially if you've never been, or if you want to check, you want to check it out, and like this is what it's like to walk in. This is the interior. You can see, I can do a party of 8 there, no problem. Right. Or it's a little, pretty. I can bring a date here, or it's a casual dinner. Bring my family. So those are the kind of things I want to share. I want to share the whole experience, not just food. Well,
I think that like, I don't know if this is new, but I think that's how people think now. Like when they're vetting, where do I want to go to eat? The menu is a great start. But I usually look at the menu, but then I go right to their Instagram.
Yeah.
I want to see visuals of the menu.
Agree.
And then I want to see the vibe,
the
ambiance. Cause it's like, I think you have to like, it's so competitive.
Yeah.
You have to stand out. Everything from like the ambient lighting to the plants, like all these details really matter.
That's why, exactly. That's why I like to highlight interiors and the food, and sometimes beverages as well, right? Because you want to give the whole experience, not just the dishes.
So how do you, keeping up with the trends, it sounds like can be annoying.
It is.
Especially when you're not ready.
Yeah.
Do you really wait? Like, how do you finally, like, when did you finally say, what, I'm going to do video? Was it like, I'm ready? Or was it, okay, my clients keep asking for this? Like, what was the tipping point?
A little bit of both. Yeah. I mean, actually, it was more brands asking for reels instead of when I was forced to do them.
Yeah.
So like, I was like, okay, so photos aren't an option anymore. Now everyone's like gearing towards reels.
Yep.
And that's actually when it started to kind of like hit me. I was like, okay, I really need to start learning video. And then it just then I started kind of like looking at other people's videos and analyzing them, how they were cut, how they were composed, editing, music, all that stuff. So I was really looking at it not from an entertainment aspect, but more from a kind of like creative aspect. How did they do this? And that's when I really was interested in learning more and more, and then kind of picking it up on my own.
I had a similar experience. I don't have clients asking me to make videos, but I know it's good for building a brand.
Yeah.
And also we're building a tool to make videos easier, editing videos easier. So I'm like, I should probably learn how to do this.
Yeah.
In the first like month, I'm like, man, I hate being in front of the camera. This is so hard. But I got to this tipping point where I'm like, this is pretty fun. And then I started seeing like observing videos differently. Now I'm looking at other content creators, really cinematic people. I'm like, man, like I'm noticing the different elements and like tactics they use, from like sounds to transitions. And I'm like, ooh, I want to try that.
Exactly.
Like I was always afraid of video.
Same.
And now I'm like, what's the next thing I can learn?
Yeah.
It's so fun. But I was fighting it for a long time myself. I'm like, probably for a year, I knew I should be making videos.
Exactly.
And I didn't.
That's exactly how I felt.
So for people out there thinking the same thing, they should just start, even if they're not ready.
That's what life. That's literally my advice for people in life. Like, don't wait to start. Just start it, even if it's bad. Just do it. You'll get better. You know, like I think when you wait to make it perfect or make it nice, like I was, you're gonna lose so much time.
Yeah.
So just like you're gonna fall and you're gonna fall and you're gonna get up right back up again.
Wait, and with content, the only way to like, I've had the same conversation with many creators here, is like the only way to get better is by putting it out there.
Yeah.
And when you start, you're not going to be good.
Exactly.
And it's kind of daunting.
Like
you can't practice this skill in private.
No.
Because you don't get any feedback. You have to put it out there.
Yeah.
So I like that. That's a great like philosophical advice. Like just do it. You got to start. Getting a little bit more tactical. Are there any tips you have on like capturing content or your editing workflow, like that took you longer to learn than should have, that you want to share with people? Like, man, I wish I knew this earlier.
I think in photography, right, for food photography, knowing where like the light source is and understanding that, and also like shadows, kind of like if there's a light above you and you're covering the food with your hand or camera, just look at the light, wave your hand over the food, and see where the shadows are. Try to create some depth to your photos, but also know where your light source is, and you can control that light source. You know, when I shoot, I just hold a little handheld.
Yep.
That's it, and my camera, nothing else.
Yeah, light is key.
Lighting's key. That's the most important. And then second is composition, right? Compose your shot. And like I always say, where does your eyes go to, right? Where does it go to? Like, does it go right to the dish? Does it go all over the photo? You want it to kind of concentrate on one area.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing, you know, and that's what I've asked myself. What's the focus of this photo? And you want to kind of go to the dish.
I remember my kind of genesis of photography was in college. I took a elective, took photography because it seemed cool. And I remember my teacher explaining the concept of like a subject. And I'm like, what does it even mean? You know? And she just said, it's when your eyes know where to go.
Yeah. Like
the viewer should know where to look. And that was pretty interesting to me. And then it wasn't for a long time and that I started exploring lighting. Like creating light is, I think that's when my photography went to like a whole different, like it was a different tier.
Yeah.
Because you can only do so much with ambient light.
Yeah.
And it's fun and challenging if that's like what you're going for. But when you integrate and create light, you can do so much more. And with video too. Like I always have this little Lume Cube with me.
Yeah.
And I'll be like shooting a silly video in my apartment. I always have a Lume Cube and painter's tape.
Yep.
Because with those two things, you can put a light anywhere.
Yep.
You can tape. I've taped my light to my computer monitor, which is this delicate thing you probably don't want to like attach things to. But you know, sometimes you gotta. Have you seen the page Shitty Rigs?
No.
It's just this page on Instagram of all these really wacky like rigs videographers and photographers use to like get a certain shot.
Amazing.
So yeah, I think basically what you're getting at is like understanding light and knowing how to add light is really important. How do you, like if I've never really thought about adding light to a video or photo through a flash or constant light, how can I get started learning about that?
Just play around with it. You know, like hold the light, you know, against the food, shoot it from different angles, hold the light. You'll see whenever I'm shooting with a friend, I'll hold my light next to the food and I'll kind of rotate the light around the food to show them how it changes the dish. Yeah. So if you're lighting behind the food, you know, the front's going to be a little darker, right? And then you get the side light, you get a little shadow on the side. When you hold it in the front, the whole thing's going to be lit.
Yep.
There's no real shadow. There's no real depth to it. So
do you default to a certain direction? Like, are you coming
I'm kind of
perpendicular a lot?
I'm kind of like a little bit at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit to the side and a little bit elevated. So I get the shadow over here.
Yeah.
That's kind of my
It's
go-to.
so interesting how there's similarities between, like, that's how I shoot people.
Yeah.
You know, like
You're
you want
holding
that
up
like
here, right?
Rembrandt lighting. It's like the same is
Yeah.
true for food.
You just have to keep experimenting. That's
just try it.
Yeah.
Like when I'm shooting a video, I have before I tape the light somewhere, I have my camera up and I'm like moving the cube around. I'm like, ooh, right there looks good.
Yep.
I like how it's reflecting my glasses. Now let me figure out how I can tape and figure out. I've created like a string out of painter's tape and taped it for my cabinet.
Amazing.
Like you can just play around with it and then figure out how to station the light there. Cool. What's next? Like, what do you want to do? Where do you want to take this? Or are you just kind of cruising?
No, I'm always trying to improve. I think this year I'm focusing more on Flash because Flash has been something that's
speaking about light. There we go.
It has been intimidating to me. I've bought a couple new flashes that I'm learning, for events, for even photo shoots. I use a constant light like this, but I actually want to learn more Flash. And
Flash is so fun.
Yeah, and videos. Like I think that like what we talked about. I just want to get better at it. So those are the two things I'm starting my TikTok that I've been postponing for years. You have
such a fun personality too. I feel like you would be great in front of the camera at these restaurants talking about the food.
Maybe. Yeah.
I challenge you. I want to see it.
Okay.
I want to see it.
TikTok I want to make more personal. I think like more kind of loose, and Instagram is more curated, a little bit more professional looking. But TikTok I just want to have fun with it. So
would you say like people on TikTok I've heard people say they want to like feel like they're talking to a friend.
Yeah.
I
feel like TikTok is like stories, like IG stories, right? I don't care what's going to be on it. It's going to vanish in 24 hours. It's permanent. But like, I just feel even with TikTok creators, a lot of them are just doing videos on their phones, know? And like,
it's just more raw.
It's just raw. Exactly. Yeah. It's less curated, less kind of structured. So I think that's something I want to do this year.
Nice. I love it.
And just become a better photographer / content creator.
Just grow in every way.
Especially
with light.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, Ben, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
For those of you out there that don't follow Ben yet, go follow him at Stuff Ben Eats to find the best restaurants in New York City.
Thank you, brother.